What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are back with another reaction video. Thank you so much for joining me today. The support truly means a lot. And to all my new viewers, welcome to the family. Welcome to the family. I hope you all enjoyed this video just as much as myself. Before we jump right into this video, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and turn all post notifications on so you don't miss another one of these reaction videos. And if you would like to recommend some of these phenomenal videos for myself to react to, spam my comment section and feel free to use that suggestion link down below in my description. Let's jump right into this video. I'm not wasting no more time because you clicked on this video for one reason and one reason only. Today, I will be reacting to why the US-Canada border is so weird. Let's jump right into this, man. Why is it so weird?
At 5,525 miles, the US-Canada border is super long.
I mean, yeah, you gotta keep it 100 though. Why does our border look like this? Why does our border look like this?
Given how friendly these countries are, you would think that the border would be pretty simple, but that's not actually the case. In fact, this is one of the weirdest borders in the world. There's a lot to cover here, so let's dive in.
I've always wondered that, like looking at it on the map and on the globe, like why does the border
The United States-Canada border spans the entire North American continent, and because of this, it crosses a wide range of geography. So before we do anything else, let's take a look at where the border goes. So, starting on the Atlantic coast between Maine and New Brunswick, the border first wanders north through thick forests and rugged highlands before circling back around to the south, where it follows the 45th parallel to the Great Lakes. Here, it follows the water systems of Lakes Ontario, Erie, Huron, and Superior, with the iconic Niagara River and the Thousand Islands region acting as natural boundaries. After the Great Lakes, the border follows the Pigeon River, separating Minnesota from Ontario before straddling about 100 different lakes, including the infamous Lake of the Woods, where the border juts north and then makes an abrupt U-turn back towards the 49th parallel. And don't worry, we're going to cover this in a minute. The 49th parallel section of the border is largely defined by flat, expansive farmland, with subtle changes in elevation and the occasional interruption of rivers like the Red River of the North. Of course, though, as the border approaches the Rocky Mountains, the terrain becomes more dramatic, cutting through alpine forests and rugged peaks. Glacier National Park in Montana and Waterton Lakes National Park in Alberta straddle the border, creating one of the
So would you guys say that the US-Canada border is the biggest border in the world? It's gotta be, right?
most beautiful areas along the entire border. Further west, the boundary winds through British Columbia and Washington state, traversing temperate rainforests, coastal mountain ranges, and the Columbia River Basin. It eventually reaches the Pacific Ocean near the Strait of Juan de Fuca, where the maritime border delineates territorial waters. But that's just the southern part of the border. To the north, Alaska's boundary with Canada arcs dramatically northward. This segment follows natural features such as mountain ranges, rivers, and valleys, including the Yukon River and the towering St. Elias Mountains, home to some of the continent's highest peaks. Now that you know the border's path, let's dive into all of the weird bits and pieces of it.
Please.
As already mentioned, the US-Canada border is 5,525 miles, which already makes it the longest international border in the world.
Okay.
To put that in perspective,
I guess that answers my question right there.
The second longest border, the one between Russia and Kazakhstan, is significantly shorter at 4,254 miles. That's an incredible length for a border, considering that any place where you can cross over has to be staffed by border agents from both countries.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought this up because I was going to ask, how many troops do we have going across these countries? I was going to say the country, but it's two countries bordering each other. So I got to say these countries. How many troops do we got all together bordering these countries?
That said, though, and thankfully for both countries, the border remains undefended from a military standpoint, a testament to the peaceful existence between the two countries. Though there are quirks. The first really weird part of this border is between Vermont and Quebec. Derby Line, Vermont is in a unique situation where the international border cuts through the town, and even through buildings. The most famous example of this is the Haskell Free Library and Opera House, which was deliberately constructed astride the border in the early 1900s as a symbol of international friendship. Today, the
that's
library's front door is in the United States, while its bookshelves and reading room are in Canada. Visitors can cross the border simply by stepping from one room to another, although stricter post-9/11 border security has complicated this otherwise charming arrangement. The border also slices through private homes.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of these fascinating videos on YouTube as well of people recording and showing their homes, which actually happen to be in the center of the border. Really fascinating. You can go outside and on this side, you're in Canada. If you're across the street, you're in the United States? How does that work, man? Like, how does this work?
Residents might eat breakfast in the US and sleep in Canada. You should note though that if you want to fully enter Canada proper, you'll still need to go through customs via the road down the street. Speaking of roads crossing borders though, there's one road, also located in Vermont, that does cross the border into Canada for about 550 feet before dipping back into the United States. Just outside the town of Richford is East Richford Road, which crosses into Canada by about 100 feet. And unlike basically every other road that goes into Canada, you don't need to go through customs for this one, though you certainly won't be driving much farther into Canada either. But those are just the small oddities. So let's get to the bigger stuff. A large portion of the US-Canada border famously follows the 49th parallel, stretching about 1,260 miles from Minnesota's Lake of the Woods to the Strait of Georgia in the Pacific Northwest. Often cited as one of the world's longest straight borders, it showcases the 19th century trend of using latitude lines as political boundaries. This boundary is so sharply defined that it literally slices through forests, creating a visible divide. But the story gets even more intriguing.
So you telling me they got a line split between these countries? Literally?
Through forests, creating a visible divide. But the story gets even more intriguing. The 49th parallel doesn't continue straight to Lake Superior as one might expect. Instead, the border dips south along the Pigeon River, a quirk rooted in the 1783 Treaty of Paris, which ended the American Revolutionary War. The treaty relied on outdated maps and vague descriptions, leading to later corrections when surveys revealed the actual geography of the region. Similarly, the 49th parallel bypasses Vancouver Island entirely, leaving the island entirely within Canadian territory. This arrangement was the result of the Oregon Treaty of 1846, which resolved a boundary dispute between British and American settlers in the Northwest. While the US secured rights to land south of the 49th parallel, the British insisted on retaining Vancouver Island, a strategic and economically valuable region at the time. The treaty's language was ambiguous enough to lead to further disputes, however, including the infamous Pig War of 1859 that would ultimately lead to the San Juan Islands becoming part of the United States. Moving back east, the border through Maine is another oddity. Unlike the straight-line simplicity of the 49th and 45th parallels that define much of the border, Maine's boundary with Canada is a twisting, jagged line that owes its shape to the Aroostook War, a boundary dispute between the US and Britain in the 1830s and 1840s. Once again, the Treaty of Paris had vaguely defined the border between Maine and New Brunswick, leading to conflicting claims over the area. The Webster-Ashburton Treaty of 1842 eventually settled the issue, but only after protracted negotiations and near-armed conflict. The resulting border follows rivers and mountain ridges, which explains its irregular shape. But the question remains, why didn't they simply extend the 45th parallel, which forms much of the border between Vermont and Quebec, eastward to the Bay of Fundy? Who can say? Beyond these larger quirks, the border's micro-anomalies are even more intriguing. Let's first head to the northwest angle of Minnesota, a small piece of land north of the 49th parallel that is cut off from the rest of the United States. This border oddity is the result of yet another treaty mishap. The Treaty of Paris that defined the northwest boundary of the US as running through the northwest angle of the Lake of the Woods was based on faulty maps of the region at the time. When the true geography of the lake was uncovered, it left this isolated pocket of US territory accessible only by boat or by crossing through Canada. Today, about 100 people live in the area. Further west lies Point Roberts, Washington, a tiny US exclave south of Vancouver. This community exists because the 49th parallel slices through the southern tip of the Tsawwassen Peninsula. As a result, Point Roberts is cut off from the rest of the United States and is accessible by land only through Canada. Residents must cross the border multiple times a day for work, school, and other.
That's gotta be annoying. You gotta cross the border multiple times throughout your day. Multiple times throughout your week. Oh, that's gotta be annoying. I mean, how fast are we moving at these borders? My goodness, security checks are annoying. If there's one thing I do remember, it's that security check at the border when coming into Canada. It takes time, guys. So having to commute through this every single day, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Necessities. The closeness of Point Roberts to the major city of Vancouver,
Probably
British
normal.
Columbia has led to some odd demographic traits, such as people living in the US-owned Point Roberts and working in Vancouver in order to satisfy specific visa requirements.
That's right.
Similar to Point Roberts, in Quebec, the Akwesasne Mohawk Territory straddles the US-Canada border.
Wait. I feel like
In order to satisfy specific Vancouver, British Columbia has led to some odd demographic traits,
sorry, guys.
such as people living in the US-owned Point Roberts and working in Vancouver.
people living in the US-owned Point Roberts. Okay, is that because it's cheaper to live over there? Or, okay. We're saying in terms if these people had an option to move there. Not they grew up there or that just so happened to be how it is. They live in the US and they work over. And did he say Vancouver City?
Traits, such as people living in the US-owned Point Roberts and working in Vancouver in order.
So living in Point Roberts, which is in the US, and then working over in Vancouver City. Now, is it like this? Because I was going to say, you know, either these people don't have a choice. That's just how it is. They live in the United States and they have to commute over to Vancouver City to work. Or maybe it's cheaper to live in the US over on that side. And then you probably make more money commuting over to Vancouver City to work, right? I mean, come on, everybody makes more money working in the city.
To satisfy
So that's a win-win.
specific visa requirements.
I would just
Similar
wanna
to
live in
Point
Canada.
Roberts, in Quebec,
But
the Akwesasne Mohawk Territory, Quebec, and New York. The Akwesasne people have lived in this region for centuries, long before international borders were drawn. But today, the community has to navigate a patchwork of jurisdictions across both countries, with residents regularly crossing international boundaries to access schools, healthcare, and other services. This has led to there being two Akwesasne towns, one on the small peninsula jutting into Quebec, and the other firmly rooted in New York
That's gotta
State.
be so weird.
Despite this international boundary separation, the Akwesasne people consider themselves a single community.
That's right.
Then there's Hyder, Alaska, a remote town that can only be accessed by land from Canada. Surrounded by mountains and forests, Hyder is geographically isolated from the rest of Alaska, and its residents rely heavily on the nearby Canadian town of Stewart, British Columbia for services. In fact, Hyder is so dependent on their Canadian neighbors that the town primarily pays for things using Canadian currency. Residents also use the British Columbia 250 area code rather than Alaska's 907. They manually change their clocks to British Columbia's Pacific time zone rather than the Alaska time zone, and they even celebrate Canada Day. The border here is mostly a technicality, with a level of integration that blurs the line between the two countries. Back east, a similar but opposite situation exists on the island of Campobello in New Brunswick. Although the island is part of Canada, its only road connection is to the US state of Maine via the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Bridge. As such, Campobello residents must cross the border for most of their shopping, healthcare, and other needs despite living in Canada. This reliance on the US has created consistent requests from
That's so unfair though, because you live in Canada and you cross the border to go food shopping or something, you gotta pay more money, right? You gotta pay US prices. Now, how is this working with the tariff now? You live in Canada, but you go shopping in the United States, price is gonna be a little higher. My goodness, I mean, doesn't leave you with a lot of options.
the island's residents for a bridge that directly connects to
Unless you go
Canada,
shopping
as
in
ferry
Canada.
service is inconsistent through the spring, summer, and fall, and far too dangerous during winter. There's so many more little weird spots on the US-Canada border, but I had to draw the line at my very favorite oddities. If this video got you super stoked on either the US or Canadian geography, well, be sure to check out my map store and buy a map for your walls. Every map you buy,
some of these Americans need maps for their walls. Y'all watch this video? Go ahead and order that map. I'm talking to the clueless ones. The clueless ones, you need that on your wall. You need to be able to just wake up in the morning and look at that map. That's what you need to do, because, oh, boy, when it comes to Americans in geography, you can forget about it. And it always led me to wonder, as a kid, why did our border look like this? Not too many kids my age. How old was I? Maybe around 12? Not too many 12-year-olds are questioning why the US-Canada border looks like this. Like, come on, like, I'm in class. The map was so small, and the globe and the lines on it were so small that I used to have to, you know, get my pinky, and I used to, like, follow and trace the lines on the globe or on the map chart and try to, like, follow the border. But I always got confused as a kid because sometimes the lines would break off, and I'm like, wait. So where's the border going now? Is it going this way? Is it going that way? It was so confusing as a kid, but I fully understand it now as an adult, and that's what matters. If you guys enjoyed this video just as much as myself, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and turn all post notifications on so you don't miss another one of these reaction videos. Feel free to spam my comment section and use that suggestion link as well in my description down below if you would like to recommend some more of these phenomenal videos for me myself to react to. And we are so close to 10,000 subscribers before the summertime, and I know we will hit it. Oh, we will. I have a lot of faith, and I highly appreciate all the support that's been flowing in on this channel. I mean, my goodness, you guys give me a reason to wake up every day and continue to do what I love. Continue to give me videos to watch and react to, and I am highly appreciative for all the love and support. Once again, I will catch you guys in the next reaction video. Stay safe.